Bernie Sanders has been making the rounds here. It's been going viral that he recently gave this speech saying that the DNC needs to go further left. My left, your right. Let's watch.
Our ideas and our progressive vision, we are the future of this country. But there is no question, there is no question
Maybe some
that
questions?
we have won the battle of ideas. American people are profoundly sick and tired of establishment politics and establishment economics.
Question. First off, I don't know how he just concludes that there's no question that our ideas have won.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
It certainly hasn't won the court of public opinion. There are plenty of people who can't stand socialism, and it certainly hasn't won as far as where we've seen socialism enacted in countries across the world.
Maybe means professors.
Yeah, maybe means professors
are on board.
He means professors in academia. Most of them are socialists, so we can pretty much wrap this one up, call it a day. It's important that we frame this in. What does Bernie Sanders mean? We've won. Our ideas have won. Just what ideas does Bernie Sanders support? Well, he supports the kind of socialism you see in Venezuela. Don't take my word for it. Here's an exact quote. These days, the American dream is more apt to be realized in places such as Ecuador, Venezuela, Argentina, where incomes are actually more equal today than they are in the land of Horatio Alger. Who's the banana republic now? Now, here's the thing. In limited context, that would seem bad, right? Because he's talking about income inequality and fixing that.
It was
we
a
can
whole
all
5
be on
years ago.
Yes, 5 years ago. It's not like he's supporting socialist communist breadlines or anything.
You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing. In other countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food and the poor starve to death.
You so much, Bernie Sanders. So much. That is so damning. As much context as possible. So praise Venezuela, breadlines. Well, what do we see with Venezuela? It's obviously in turmoil. They tried to claim it as a victory. Sean Penn, Bernie Sanders, their leftist elite. But just today it was reported that protesters have set fire to the Supreme Court. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to medicine. Venezuelans, we've talked about this, have lost on average 19 pounds in the last year.
You've got like a whole group of fat people in our audience going,
oh gosh, I can get on the Venezuela diet. This is what really bothers me. Progressive, he said fresh ideas. What's fresh about big government socialism? What's fresh about effectively you can call it whatever you want, whether you look throughout history, whether it's a monarchy, whether it's authoritarian, you can go back to Robin Hood times, you can go to communism, socialism. It is about the idea of big government, of the collective superseding the value of the individual. That's what's important. We want to talk about Europe, fresh ideas, old European socialism. Listen, even their revolutions in Europe aren't revolutionary. The French Revolution led to Napoleon's dictatorship. Why? Because the rights came from the state, not from God. That's something you can bring that up right there. There you go. Now, the French Revolution's declaration, the rights of man, and its assertion of liberty, equality, and fraternity were based purely on the human assertion of this truth as opposed to the American Revolution's basis of the creator and natural law. That's an important delineation. If you want to talk about fresh ideas, okay, throughout the realm of human history, there is no fresher, no more modern an idea than that of free market capitalism, than that of free enterprise. If you really look at blocks of it, the Romans, the Greeks, you look at the Turks, you look at you look at the English Empire, okay? You look at the time span of the United States. That is revolutionary. That is fresh. That is the thing that was never done before. Germany, their fresh ideas, they rejected democracy after World War I. They got Hitler instead. The revolutions were constantly pushing toward big government. And I know, listen, the goalposts keep moving, right? With socialism and communism, and that's why we have to kind of define it, where they say, well, socialism, and they say, well, we mean Denmark, we mean Norwegian socialism, and then the Danish prime minister says, no, we're not socialist, we're a market economy. And then Bernie Sanders 5 years ago says, Venezuela, look at that looks great, and so does Sean Penn. And then when Venezuela collapses, they say that's not real socialism. And now to the point where real socialism is just communism. If you look at the American Socialist Party, they were tweeting me saying that really under true socialism, there wouldn't be any form of currency. Well, by God, if that's your standard, then we can never say definitively that something has failed. The United States is the world's only superpower ever that didn't have a ruling class. Matter of fact, I think the United States may be the only country at its inception, as far as a major country, to not have a ruling class.
I think you might be right.
If not a monarchy, but certainly a big government ruling class. It was the first country at that point. Again, you can talk about the French Revolution. You can use the term democracy loosely. Even if you look at Guy Fawkes, the guy was a religious authoritarian. The people talk about V for Vendetta. They don't realize what that guy was fighting for. He wasn't fighting for freedom. He was fighting because he wanted his big government guys to take over the big government guys. We're the only country to say we're getting rid of big government guys altogether because you have stripped the individual of his power in the name of the collective. And that's why the United States was created, for the little guy. So that there is no king, there is no ruling class, there is no political class who make all the money and the people below them grovel in breadlines, as Bernie Sanders praised. The United States was precisely created by the little guy, leaving the biggest guy ever in the history of man, with the British Empire flipping the bird, saying, we're going to be a country of little guys. It was a militia of little guys, people who didn't have uniforms, who were taking out the world's greatest military superpower because they wanted a country precisely for the little guy who Bernie Sanders claims to champion with new, fresh policies that are exactly like the old ones we left that ultimately screw the little guy.
Hey, if you like this video, subscribe by clicking the button. It's a circular button now that says subscribe. If not, head on over to the Young Turks. That's probably more your speed. Although they're coming over your Cenk, we know you're here watching. I can smell you from here. There's also a recommended video box playing right up there. You can join the Mug Club at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub for daily content, so we're not dependent here on YouTube. Cenk, go. No. Go. You don't need to stay here. This isn't good for, it's bad for your soul.